Nanovor hacked.
To an outsider, Dana supposed the Diamondbacks' basement lab was shining, glorious, the perfect place for a scientist of Dr. Diamondback's caliber to work. And, she supposed, compared to other labs, it was well lit and with an impressive array of computers and large monitors, an electron microscope, a drafting table, and other equipment. It looked state of the art, expensive, and important. But to her, it was but a shell of what the basement once was. Before, it was packed with 3 times as much equipment. The science equivalent of Home and Garden magazine had once come to photograph it as one of the best private labs in the Western Hemisphere. It was a lab worthy of her father and his status. He was one of the most important scientists to have ever worked for Skylab Technologies. Until he'd been forced to resign. Until he'd been let go. But he'd be on top again. If not at Skylab's, then somewhere better. Dana was convinced of this. Dana, now dressed a skirt and a blouse. Her dad never took her seriously in her cheerleading uniform. Led Ben and Bulk down the stairs to the lab where her dad worked. She thought about Madame Zeldara and the amazing things Lucas had made her do. Personal data was pretty much close to currency these days, as exhibited by the idiots who put all their personal data on MySpace, then freaked out when someone pointed out it wasn't private information anymore. Lucas was skirting a fine ethical line with Madame Zeldara, but his loophole was he was not saving any of the data. It was used for carnival tricks only, nothing else. But what else could it be used for? "Daddy, I'm home," she called as they reached the bottom of the basement stairs. "Dana, my delectable offspring, and Ben," her father said, sitting up from his microscope. He ignored Bulk entirely, although he filled the stairwell behind Dana and Ben. Dr. Diamondback was in a white lab coat and suit, clothing he still insisted on wearing even though he worked from home now. He squinted at Ben. "I have news for you, Ben." Dana pursed her lips and glanced at Ben, who stammered. She blew her bangs out of her eyes in disgust and spoke again, trying to capture her father's eyes. "What is it, Daddy?" "I have been chosen." He pulled the letter out of his coat pocket and waved it around. "The Emerald City Science Fair is in need of one more judge, and they have employed great intelligence in courting me to this post." "That's wonderful, Daddy," Dana said, smiling widely. It was rare she saw her father so happy. She longed someday to make him react like that. "But, sir, won't Skylab's people be there judging too?" asked Ben. The glee left Dr. Diamondback's face, and his grin vanished, and his eyebrows furrowed. "That's correct, Ben. And, well, they." Ben rubbed the back of his head and looked at Dana. She gave him a disgusted look but decided to bail him out. Dana took her father's arm again and pulled him backward focusing on his computer monitor. "Daddy," she said loudly, "is that a new Nanovor? Did you discover it?" "Clever one, my princess," he said, and Dana felt warm as she smiled back at him. As the Nanovor had distracted her father from his earlier annoyance about Skylabs, Dana decided to take her chance. "Daddy, about the science fair, you know Lucas Nelson, the freshman who discovered the Nanovor?" He pursed his lips. "He remains fresh in my brain. Disappointing that negotiations with him have been unsuccessful." Dana plastered on her special daddy smile that she saved for only him. "Well, I think you and the Skylab's judges should pay special attention to his science experiment." Dr. Diamondback's eyes grew wide. "He's not exhibiting the Nanovor, is he? I'll have his head if he reveals them to the scientific community before I do." Dana turned up the wattage on her smile. "No, Daddy, nothing like that. But I really think it's something you need to see for yourself. Lucas is quite bright, I will grant him that. And if he could abandon his friendship with that appalling sapphire, I might be willing to consider him a worthy disciple." He glanced up at Ben and sneered a moment. Ben tried to stand up straighter. Dr. Diamondback shook his head. "But Lucas's refusal to aid me in the past gives me pause to grant him any special favor. What would you say if I said his science project may be the key to Skylabs? Or rather, it's the door, and Lucas is the key. Would you give him more attention then?" Dana asked. Her cheeks felt flushed. She finally had her dad's full attention. His eyes narrowed. "Tell me more."